letting go doesn't require certainty. It can mean facing what's true, facing what's present, releasing the demand for complete control, continuing to take the next responsible action. This isn't, again, about learning how to drink less or not drink. The alcohol problem goes away when you can feel this other emotional stuff. Welcome to the Sober Friends podcast. I'm Matt J. Over there is Steve. If you have ever wondered whether life can really get better without alcohol, you're in the right place. And whether you're new to recovery, have some sober time, or you're just supporting somebody that you love, we're glad you're here. All y'all are welcome. And this is a podcast about sobriety. It's about emotional growth. It's about learning how to navigate without having to drink over it. And Steve, right at the top, I don't think we say this enough. This is not about alcohol or how to drink less or how many drinks I had or talking a lot about alcohol. It's just a lot about life shit. And when we get off on the life shit stuff, it's like, how is this about sobriety? Because the life shit stuff was the stuff we drank over. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, that's what we talk about on this. We talk about stuff that seemingly, especially maybe if you're new in recovery, you may struggle with it sometimes, but I don't think so, because I think we touch enough on the actual drinking part too. But we talk about things that bothered us enough that we would try to bury those feelings, right? Mm-hmm. And we buried those feelings through alcohol use. So, listen, it's, for me, it's an everyday thing, right? I mean, it's a thing that I work on. It's not every day, not every minute, but it's a thing that I work on all the time, is dealing with those situations that used to drive me crazy and still can today. But today I have to figure out, today I have to figure out I have to figure out two things today. How do I do those things without overreacting, which sometimes I still struggle with that. And then mostly, how do I do those things without looking for the easy way out, which was for me was to pick up a bottle and start drinking. So that's what we talk about. That's what we do here. We talk about life stuff. If we were a book, maybe we'd be called Living Sober, right? I mean it. So trying to figure out how we live a sober life.
All right, you said it all. Just stop the podcast now, read Living Sober. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
So I want to share a story from yesterday. I have talked a lot about this medicine taper and the anxiety, and I have been up and down, and I'm fighting through it. And the anxiety started to build again. And I think it's because the body got used to the low dose every day. And so it's like I was fine. I was like, now it's starting to feel like the taper again. But I think it's medicine related. So I'm going to share a little bit of a story about my son. I think I've talked a little bit about this. He turned 18 in May. He was accepted to Endicott College, going there in the fall. He's going to play Division III volleyball. The freaking kid's a stud, both academically and athletically. A lot of it, all of the things I never was or never could be that he can be. And so I had this crippling anxiety realizing that the financing that I thought was all done isn't. And we got to get this together. And there's the one thing that makes me crazy. It is money. So there were a bunch of pressure points that got hit all at once. And the level of panic attack I had Friday night and woke up with it on Saturday morning was like 71 out of 10. It was high. So I went downstairs and I did not want to do this. And it took all my effort to go in and start doing a checklist of the things I need to do. And realizing through this checklist, I'm like, okay, I should not go at this willy-nilly. There are things that in order I need to do, and this is manageable. And so I wanted to go look at a picture of him. I was looking for a specific picture of him and somebody else I know. And I didn't find that particular picture, but I found a bunch of him as a baby. And I just uncontrollably started crying. And I don't cry often, I used to be able to cry often, but probably not in the last 10 years or so. I have this thing where if I start crying, I start crying. I don't just like the tears come down my face. It's either I control my emotions or I am a blubbering mess. And I don't want people to see me as a blubbering mess. It feels totally out of control. But I also was downstairs and nobody was around. And I'm looking through these pictures and I'm sobbing. And I'm like, I don't know when this is going to stop. And because digital photographs they kind of look as good as, back when we were kids, the photographs looked old after a while. These photographs look like they were taken yesterday, and it feels like they were taken yesterday. And he's a little baby coming out of the shower with his ass hanging out. And he's an 18-year-old man. He's walking around without his shirt on. And I had noted that, like, Jesus Christ, your shoulders are enormous because he's doing this different exercise. And he's not that little baby anymore. He's got these enormous muscles. He's taller than me. And he's not going to be here anymore. Mm-hmm. And we had just had a really good afternoon where I was cleaning up the brush in the backyard. And he came out to, quote, help me. But really it was pretty clear. He just wanted to hang and was really, really chatty for like a couple hours. And there were other things I needed to do. But I just kind of sat there and listened and was present. And sitting there talking to him, I realized, like, this is a moment I'm never going to have again. Or it's not like something bad's going to, but it's like, this is a special moment. Be as present as you can. Because you're going to look back at this, whatever we're talking about, with a joyful feeling that this is a good memory, and you're having it now. So stop and be present. And all of that hit me, and the emotion was intense. And once, like, the crying stopped, I felt better yesterday than I had felt in months. Like, it felt, I just had this relief of just like everything. And I think that fear of him going and the finances have just been building and building and building on top of everything. And I finally allowed myself to release it out. And I really have felt better, even though it's not tied up. It's not in a knot, closed up. But I had allowed it to come out. And it was a wonderful feeling without saying everything's going to be great.
Yeah. It's interesting how I'm the same way. I do get brought to emotion every once in a while where something will hit me, music, mm-hmm. A video, something like that will hit me. And it'll bring tears to my eyes and it'll choke me up. But I don't do that blubberly crying a lot. But every once in a while, I do the same thing. And it always feels good. I mean it. It always feels good. And man, you're in a point in your life where you got a lot going on. And like I said, you got it. I remember the same thing. My son when he went to college more than high school, but got into rock climbing and stuff like that. And the same thing, I remember seeing my son when he was like 19 years old with his shirt off and had this chiseled body of a rock climber, right? Strong, yeah. Like, just, and the same thing, like, I still envision him as this little kid. And it was like, no, that's not that anymore. And then it became even a little bit more. Some of that stuff was trickier for me because of my divorce, right? That I divorced when he was like 9 years old, so I wasn't there 24/7, and I wasn't there. I was there for a lot. Trust me, I was a very involved dad, but not there as much. And every once in a while, that too would get to me, right? Again, same thing. I would hold that. And then every once in a while, I'd get a trigger, either a photograph or something, just like you, photograph or something else, and then have this huge, overwhelming emotion. So I think it's just a way to cope. I remember the financial anxiety when both my kids went to college. My kids are 3 years apart, so they were both in college for a year together. And I just remember trying to get all that stuff nailed down, to get housing nailed down. Because I was same thing. Like, because we were divorced, whatever reason, all of that financial stuff fell on me. It had to fall on one of us, right? One of the parents. So it fell on me. So I was one in charge with work. Now, again, my kids were really good. My kids did 90% of the work. They did. Like, my kids did all the work.
He's done so much work on this.
Right. And they did too. Like, they did. And they would come to me and say, hey, Dad, I need you to do this, or I need you to get online and do that. Like, they would tell me what they needed out of me. So I was really blessed with that I had children who were able to do some of that stuff. But I also remember that, and that all that anxiety, because just like you said, the finances, all that kind of stuff, and it's hard. It's hard to do it. I remember looking at it, and now that it's behind me, and I just remember, like I said, like, I had that stretch where my kids were getting to hit college, and I got lucky in life. That stretch hit when I sort of hit my peak in making money. And because I was a salesperson, and my compensation package changed all the time, and it changed, and I worked for a big company at the time, and it changed in a way that I was able to make some decent money. So I had a lot of money going out for my kids. And I did that. But man, the anxiety of it was crazy. It was crazy. So I think every once in a while we need that. We need to figure it out. We need to let ourselves just let it go. And it's therapeutic.
And this is, I know I need to do this when I get numb. And I think I've been numb for a while. I really get numb where there's no emotion. And I think it is the way of me trying to control it. As an aside, money-wise, if I were to show you what my wife and I make, you would think, how do you have any money issues? And I look at that, I'm like, how the hell do we have any money issues, and how do we struggle? But we're in that like middle ground of making too much to get additional help, but also not making enough to do it on our own. Right. It's this weird place that we are in American society, where with the amount of money we make, we should not have the problems that we have. That's a different. This is where the economy is right now, and things will eventually get better. But Jesus, we're getting hit in the head here, and it should not be the case. I think through the trigger here being, I must be a bad dad if I can't support enough for him. Like, what if I fail at this and then he can't go, and we're wasting that intelligence and that academics? That was the thing I remember sobbing. I don't want to fail him as a father. And I think it comes back to how I grew up, that I hate to pat myself on the back. He's having a better experience with parents than I did at his age. He has he has two parents at home. He has two parents who can give him the right guidance. He's not alone. I have an extreme Gen X growing up story of typical Gen X, that I was a latchkey kid where I got no freaking guidance from the parents. And then growing up to be an adult, you're parenting both your kids and your parents, that were the sandwich generation, where it's like, man, us Gen X people got fucked. But he's not getting that experience, and neither are his two sisters, who also are extremely athletic and also smart as hell. And it's like, he's wicked smart, and then the other two kids might be smarter in their own way than even he is.
We'll be right back.
Are you a veteran who feels disconnected, constantly on edge, or like you've lost your sense of purpose since leaving the military? You want to feel more like yourself again, be there for your family, and find something meaningful to work toward. On the Drive On podcast, you'll hear conversations with veterans, mental health professionals, and other experts. They share practical advice, helpful resources, and stories from people who have faced many of the same challenges you have. If you're ready to move forward after military service, listen to the Drive On podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm in a weird thing. See, I'm considered I don't know if you ever heard of the Jones generation, which is the end. It's a generation that spans about 10 years from the end of the boomers into the early part of Gen Xers.
Yeah.
And that's where I fall. I fall into that category. So I really identify way more with Gen Xers than I do boomers, right? Because same thing. I was sort of a latchkey kid, all that kind of stuff. And my kids, I didn't have good parenting. My wife, that was the only thing. My wife had very good parenting, right? My kids' moms is what I'm talking about. She grew up and her dad was a doctor, right? Mom was a stay-at-home mom. She had very good parenting. But I didn't. I was like you. I had none. No guidance. Everything I did was on my own. Everything, and I mean that. Everything I did was on my own. No guidance at all. Plus, I lived in an alcoholic home. Mm-hmm. So it is nice to see that, your son has that, and I'm sure your son appreciates it. It's hard, and again, it's hard when you're 18 years old. I
know he
that.
does. He doesn't
Right.
say it, but he says it
Right.
in his own
That's
way.
what I mean. It's hard, and sometimes, at that thing, they got a lot of stuff going on, but they appreciate it, and you'll see. I just think about your life where you have, this is your first going. So, starting to settle into you, like, oh, my kids are starting to get older, and I'm right. And the other thing that happens where you don't realize it, like, that's you saying to yourself, oh, I'm getting older too, right?
Yep.
I just remember, listen, I'm 68 years old. I don't know how that happened. I mean that honestly. We talk about it, but I don't know how that happened that I got to be that old. I certainly don't feel that old, but it's true, right? I mean, like a couple of years, I'll be, God willing, I'll be 70 years old. I don't give a shit what you say about the 70 to new 50. 70 years old is old. So it is now that thing. I talk about it all the time in my meetings. I am very much aware today of my own mortality. I'm very much aware of where I am in life, and that at 68 years old, I am way beyond. I am way into the back nine of my life, and who knows how much longer. So I try to appreciate all these things. So, the thing I would say about having that moment where you break down, you cry, is like, first of all, that I think that's a cleansing thing to do. And then hopefully it gives you a chance to sort of start appreciating and being present while the next few steps of your son's, because in the next few months when he first goes off to school, you'll have a lot of anxiety over that. He may have some anxiety when he gets to school. So, but hopefully it'll give you an opportunity to be present during all that, and just to take it in and live it and be there for him, because then the whole thing starts. Oh, I hate my roommate. My roommate's this. Trust me, it goes on for a while, right? It goes on for a while. What did it do? The class. It still goes on. And my kids were easy. And it still went on with them. But I want to touch base about something my wife and I talked early on. Is quick story is my mother-in-law had a cat that my wife got her. She picked it up from, I think my wife said the Vernon Pound, but I don't know where they got. They rescued this cat. It was my mother-in-law's cat. My mother-in-law died, I don't know, probably 10, 11 years ago. And so we had two dogs at the time. We didn't want to take in the cat. We weren't cat people, really. I was a cat person. My wife grew up with the cat, but we didn't want to take it. So we gave this cat to a friend who turned out to be an alcoholic and turned out at the end to die from this alcohol. So this cat was in this situation, and I sort of lost track. I knew this cat was there, and we had a mutual friend who would go over to see this woman, and she would report back how bad she was doing, and she would say things like, "Oh, that poor cat," and it never hit me that my wife and I, had a responsibility to that cat because it was a mother's cat, right? And finally, one day, my wife said, "I think I got to go get that cat." And we did. Anyway, we went and rescued the cat, which was a disaster. She was a mess. Matted, blah, blah, blah. We had that cat for 2 years. She was 16 when we got her. She died 2 years later. And here's the story. I brought this cat, and I really liked this cat, and I had a cat for a long time. I had a cat for 16 years on my own, 17 years on my own. And I brought this cat in the vet, and the kidneys weren't functioning. I put the cat down. I sobbed for 20 minutes. And it caught me off guard because I only had that cat for 2 years. Like, it wasn't like this was a lifelong pet. I sobbed. And my wife and I were just talking about this the other day. And I said that I had a cat that I picked up when I was young and single. And when I was divorced, I left the cat behind because my kids were there. And, that was her home. And she was older. And my cat died shortly after that, within maybe 2 years. And I said, I have this guilty feeling that and trust me, I won't give you the whole thing. This cat, I moved many times with this cat. This cat came everywhere with me. This cat was great. And I said, I felt like I let that cat down. Like, I wasn't there when she died, right? I wasn't there at the end times because I was her person, right? And Sue said, maybe that's why you cried so hard for Sammy, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't Sammy. Maybe it was you were mourning the fact that you weren't there. The other cat's name was Honey. And I had never thought about that. And my point is, sometimes we're sobbing over things that we're not sure really what we're sobbing over. That's my point. Or we're yeah, and it's the same thing. Sometimes we get pissed off, we get angry, whatever it is, and it's always not what we think it is. So, that was really eye-opening to me, and it actually made me feel better. It did. Like, it released some of that guilt feeling I had over Honey, the other cat.
Some resolution.
Right. It did. It gave me some resolution to that thing. It was like, something? That's right. So, because I didn't mourn over the cat, right? I wasn't there. And it was interesting, right? We had, after she died, we buried her in the backyard of their home, and we went up, and we all did that together. But there was no tears. I didn't feel, and I do think that it was just me, doing that. So anyway, again, sometimes that's really good. Sometimes we don't know what's going on, right? And sometimes we got to let go. We just got to let go and let the process be what it is, right?
Yep.
I mean, the other thing I talk about it all the time. I'm such a control person. It's the other reason why I don't want people to see me crying and stuff, because I just want to show that I'm always in control,
I think that's the thing with me.
And especially around family, right? I don't want, especially around my kids, right? I don't want my kids to think, oh no, and I'm not saying this is good. Trust me. I'm saying it's probably good if the kids could see that. And my kids have seen me cry when my parents died and stuff like that. They've seen me wail, right? Like when my mom and dad died at the end, there was always a point, and I've said it, like for me, I was able to go through the whole thing, but at the funeral home, before you go to the cemetery where the family goes up and says goodbye, everybody goes up and they say goodbye. That's where I break down. It was like, that's it. This is the final time, right? There's a final thing. We're going to go. We're going to put them in the ground, and that's going to be the end of it. That's where I would always lose it. I could keep it all buttoned up until then. So my kids have certainly seen that there's emotion. But, it's part of just trying to be in control and keeping those emotions in check. And like I said, it's not always a good thing, but I'm more relaxed with it today. I'm more relaxed to let it happen. I'm more relaxed to not sob, but again, be brought to tears over things that move me.
It's probably better to be brought to tears than let it build up.
Right.
When you have to sob.
Yeah.
And I am hopeful this experience this weekend is the thing that allows me that emotional growth. As you're talking about this, I was thinking in the back of the head that the last time I really was sobbing was probably in early 2025. And it was a something else thing that was causing me to sob. It was first watching, I don't know if it was in this order. It might have been, no, I think I watched Norm Macdonald, Nothing Special on Netflix. And then it was the 50th for SNL. And I sobbed at both of those things. The Nothing Special, if you haven't seen it, if you're a Norm fan, go watch it on Netflix. Nothing Special is, he knew he was sick. It was COVID. He wasn't sure if he was going to get the set done. So we did it into like a Zoom camera in his house. And he does it without any notes, without any audience. And it's wonderful. And then the camera kind of pulls away from the TV, and Conan and Molly Shannon and Dave Letterman and Dave Chappelle are sitting there, and they're kind of talking about Norm. And then when Adam Sandler did his song, and he had a lyric about both Norm and Chris Farley, those moments just make me sob. I have talked about my love for Norm Macdonald on this show before. I love Norm. He still makes me laugh like crazy. I can go over all of the old stuff. He was the greatest Weekend Update host. Don't at me, because if you say it's somebody else that you like, you're wrong. He was the greatest. And I realized like the stuff about Norm dying is really more about me. It's about that letting go of what Norm meant to me in that moment in the 90s in college, of like letting go of that before career, that transition from being a kid to an adult that he reminds me of. It was that period of time. And if Norm's gone, then I have to let go of that time. And I think it's also, Norm got sick. He told his son, his brother, his business manager / business partner, and his mom, and no one else. And didn't tell anybody how sick he was for 9 years. And he kind of kept it to himself for 9 years. And there's that feeling of, what is going on psychologically that you hold something that big from even your closest friends, and that we didn't know our time with you was so short that we never got a chance to say goodbye. That's how I feel. Like, I didn't know I didn't have that time with you, Norm. Not that he's my friend, but I didn't know I had that. I didn't know time was short. Mm-hmm. I wasn't prepared for this. And I think that all of those feelings together are about me and letting go, which was again a trigger of anything Norm related makes me incredibly emotional. And I can both cry and laugh hysterically watching him. A little less for Chris Farley, because I think we all knew that things were not going well for Chris, even though he was hysterical. But Norm's gonna be around forever. Right. And then he wasn't. And it's almost a very similar cry, because it's not necessarily about the thing I'm crying about. It's about me.
Right.
And it's about letting go. And it's about letting go of the past is now closed. You can't go back to it. You only have the present. And if you want something that felt like that, you have to build it now.
I mean, you just said it. And so a little bit what I touched on talking about your son. It's really one of those lessons of trying to be present, right? Mm-hmm. I've talked about it before. The podcasts that I listen to all the time, it's what I go to sleep with every night, is something called, it's from Ram Dass, and he wrote a book called Be Here Now. Just think about that statement, be here now. And the whole point, he was Buddhist, right? And he's talking about being present now with what's going on now. And man, that's so hard. It's easy to say that, but it can be so hard to do, right? And I work really, really hard on that now, is to be present now for the things and the things that are happening. Again, that does come through back to my own. I realize what my mortality is. It's like, no, don't waste my time, right? Don't waste today by worrying about tomorrow. Don't waste today by worrying about my regrets of yesterday.
Yep.
Be present today for what's happening today, and be grateful for that. So, and I think that's what happens again when those type of things, when somebody like a Norm Macdonald, who I came to much later than you know, I mean, I'm a big Norm fan. They're probably not like you, but I came to his stuff much later than you did.
I came to him before SNL. I knew who he was.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I didn't. I came way after, and then when I started really paying attention to him, like it wasn't until I really paid attention to him that I realized like how funny and good this guy was. Like, because you really do. I could see where you could watch Norm Macdonald and go, I don't get this guy. I mean, I get that. Well, people could say that. But he was so good. I'm gonna go watch that special too. So anyway, it's all, you know, it's always about that. Like, it's always bringing us back to us and, you know, how we're feeling about us. And it may be a relationship that you had with someone that you didn't realize, right? Again, it may not be Norm Macdonald, but part of that, but also like you're missing some of these relationships that you had in your life, whether it's a parent, or a sibling or a close friend. You know, I have a close friend that I'm missing that relationship with, and it requires me to do some work on that I haven't been willing to do. And I don't know, you know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But you know, it gets to the point where maybe someday I'll feel uncomfortable enough with it that I'll have to take some action on it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's the lessons of life, and that's what we talk about on here, right? We talk about like, what are we doing? What are we talking about Norm Macdonald for? We're talking about this. We're trying to figure out like, hey, what's going on? What's going on with me? What's going on with us? I'm always trying to figure out what's going on with me. I you know, I had some of this yesterday. You know, yesterday I had a day that was kind of weird, and I woke up today and went, you know, that didn't feel good. I said that to myself, like yesterday didn't feel good to me. So, you know, I'm like, all right, I've got to make some changes, and not huge stuff, but I got to make some changes because I'm realizing like, I keep trying to do this one thing and it's not working. So I'm like, all right, that's the definition of insanity, right? So why I need to make a change, and that's the progress that I live in today. That's the place I live, where this program has brought me to start finding out what's bothering me, and then taking steps to make those changes necessary, so I don't keep stumbling over the same blocks. That's all.
So, some takeaways from you. Letting go doesn't require certainty. It can mean facing what's true, facing what's present, releasing the demand for complete control, continuing to take the next responsible action. This isn't, again, about learning how to drink less or not drink. It's the alcohol is, although the alcohol is a big problem, it's teeny tiny. It's about the alcohol problem goes away when you can feel this other emotional stuff. And the people who don't have addiction are probably not going to relate to this too much because they have at least some structure to handle this. And those of us who have a problem did not. And if you're like me, and what am I, like 12 years sober now? Well, I don't have it figured out after 12 years. I would have thought like, oh my God, that's forever. Yeah, I don't have it figured out. So if you don't have it figured out and you have less than 12 years, you're okay. If you don't have it figured out and you have more than 12 years, you're okay too. It's really about the journey. Steve, thanks for doing this and with my latest therapy session.
Sounds good, Matt.
All right.
See ya.
I will talk. We'll both talk to you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
Sounds good.